Hey friends, welcome. My name is Sin Lagos. I will be your mentor today. Welcome to Medium Unlimited, a series where I explore several mediums at a time. Today we're going to be exploring photography, entering the editing zone, exploring some of the photos that I took during the eclipse. If you didn't catch it yourself or you weren't part of the totality, hopefully some of my photos today will give you an insider of what it was like. It was really exciting for me. If you did experience it, share with me, where did you experience it from on the chat? I'm curious to learn, where were you at? How did it look? What was the experience like? I went on a hunt. We went on a hunt because I was in Austin, Texas, and yes, we had totality, but that day we also had gray skies. So we had to drive a little bit to find the clear skies at the right time. So hopefully y'all enjoy this process. I will be editing in Lightroom. So open up your Adobe Lightroom and edit alongside with me. Enter the workflow alongside with me, and I will be checking the chat on YouTube, on Behance, and on Facebook. If you're joining me from Facebook, first time out here, y'all. So let me know how it's like. Okay. So as we get started here, let's go over here. All right. So my name is Sin Lagos. Again, I am a photographer, a graphic designer, overall visual creator. I love being able to explore different ideas, explore emerging technologies. In my journey as a creative, I've always allowed myself to venture into different mediums. And that's really important to me. It has really helped me grow as a creative, but also as a person. So I want to be here and most of all, encourage you to try something new today. If you haven't tried something new, it's about time. This is that sign, okay? It's important to keep that intrigue, that curiosity alive. And so you can join me on YouTube. I will be doing these live streams on Wednesdays, but the schedule does change. So keep up with me by subscribing, turning on the notification bell, you know the drill, and check out my website as well, where I will be publishing the schedule. So this is some of my work here. I love entering the editing zone, especially around this hour. I am in Central Time, so it is 4 o'clock, 4:30 for me. And I love getting into the zone because honestly, post editing is something that I've always enjoyed. I know a lot of folks maybe skip it. I think it's a little bit intimidating for most. Maybe, I don't know. But I do find that the more that I do it just for play, less work oriented, the more I discover different tools and different workflows that really befit the style that I am looking for. You really cannot define a style. You sort of just run into it. You bump into it by just trial and error. So hopefully that gets you inspired, because I feel like editing isn't something that everybody does in their photos, but it is something that can be really fun to explore if you want to try something new. So I see folks here on the chat. So awesome to see people here on YouTube and on Behance. Okay, let me see here. Awesome. I see Joshua. Hi, Joshua. I'm so glad to have you on the chat. Let me know if you saw the totality. I did. Got a shirt for it, which is awesome. Not everybody did. Let me tell you, we kind of like rushed in there like it was Black Friday, and it was all meant to be. It was quite a journey. I think watching the totality was exciting, but the entire adventure was super fun in itself. So let me show you a little bit of the behind the scenes here. So that's me. That's me on another day. All right, let's explore this. So this is the camera that I used that day. Well, this is the camera lens. The body is not the exact one. This is my video camera. This lens, oh, it's been a journey to get this lens. If you're a photographer, you know that photography is very expensive and not everybody can get to this point. And this point is very, very important for me because I definitely have always wanted this lens and have always found myself saying, no, not yet, because it was such an investment. And so that was the lens I was using on that day. And I felt like it was just perfect. My birthday's around the corner. Investing in this felt just right. And what a better excuse than watching the totality of the eclipse on such a momentous day. So a little behind the scenes here of that day. So it was super cool. I was trying to set up on a tripod, got here a 360 cam. So I have some footage from that as well. But you can see here that I'm putting my settings, but I'm also using a remote control. My camera body gets triggered from the front. So I definitely had to sort of, aim at that little signal there so it would be triggered. But it was important so I wouldn't move the lens as much. Definitely a first for me. I'm not an astrophotographer. I don't find myself in deserted places, no light pollution too often. Definitely want to venture into this a little bit more because I do think it could be really exciting to try, especially here in Texas. And I found this to be really, really cool because for me, it was new and it was a cool challenge for me to undertake. Like I said, if you haven't tried something new, if you're feeling uninspired, if you're feeling bored with the thing that you're doing, and I know we all do the thing that we love, maybe, but there is a point where it doesn't feel novel anymore, right? Do you ever feel that? And you ask yourself, why am I so uninspired? And possibly that could be because you're not learning a new skill in this space. You are not venturing into something new. And sometimes just learning a new tool, just learning a new program, or in this case for me, to be able to learn how to photograph the eclipse was a cool challenge for me to undertake. Don't know how well I did, but I'm proud of my sweet little photos, my collection of scenes that show off all of these different moments. And like I said, my area was actually quite cloudy. So we had a really funny situation because we had a lot of moments where folks would look up and be like, oh, hold on, there's clouds. And then suddenly there's no clouds. And it was like, ooh, oh, there's clouds again. And so it was just fun. It was kind of cool to just see people feel that moment. I knew for sure that I needed to be around people. That was an important element. We did watch a partial eclipse during Austin city limits here also, and we were at home. It was cool to be home and experience that. But I also felt like that was because we hadn't arrived at Austin city limits that morning just yet. So I felt like this time I definitely wanted to be around community and I wanted to be around people. It was challenging because I chose a kit that was brand new for me and it was different and new. I was like, oh, how do I focus? Do I have focus? How far do I go? We're talking about a 72 200 lens. So of course I was shooting at a 200, which is the bare minimum really for a situation like this, is often 200 and up from there. And so a lot of people, showed up with gigantic lenses. I was kind of shocked of how many cool stuff I saw. I mean, so many people had really neat kits. And so you can see here, we've got a telescope. We got another fella here that had another telescope, a fellow from NASA, no less, right? Let me turn this on. All right. Okay, so yeah, there was a lot of different situations. I saw this guy here with a gigantic lens. Definitely you can see here it's 400 and up. Didn't get to meet him. Unfortunately, people kind of just ran right after it was done and over with. So hopefully I get to bump into this fellow photographer along the internet. If you're watching this, say hello because I love my online community and I think you traveled here, but I'm not sure. I see some cowboy boots here. So there was a lot of people who traveled from out of state, and it was so interesting to witness so many people come together, kids of all different kinds, dogs. You know, what is this? I don't know what this is, but it really intrigued me in the moment. It's like, wow, she has an entire set. Is she watching VR? Maybe she's in another world. She's not even here. I don't know. But I thought that was funny. And this little fella was staring right at me. But of course, the 72 to 100, you can see here, has this element where it blurs the background. Not only that, it makes it feel like it's so close, right? As if my background, for example, let me go here. I feel like this, I'm gonna go here. Okay, so I feel like this makes it feel, you can see the bouquet back here. It makes it feel like it's flat right behind you. There's no particular depth, right? There's no foreground, midground, and background separation. So that's what this lens tends to do, which could be really cool for fashion photography. It could be really cool for portraiture. There's moments that this can be great at compressing a background if you want a crowd to feel fuller than it truly is. It's a cool trick, and I can't wait to try it. That's really the reason why I wanted this lens at all, because I've always wanted those occasions. I've had a lot of moments where, let me change this. I've had a lot of moments where I definitely found myself thinking maybe I can get this lens, and I didn't. And one particular instance, right out of the pandemic, you know, we were all kind of like intrigued to see a lot of people gathering together, and it wasn't until I noticed that people were gathering in more bunches that I was like, okay, I can get back to photographing the streets again and feel safe and explore more. Babe, can you help? So as we jump in here, let's see if my thing is in focus. Ah, it's in focus. Awesome. All right, so let's get started on the editing. I see here a few more folks on the chat. What sort of filter did I use? On my lens or on the pictures? I have not edited the pictures yet, so I'm not using a filter yet. And if I was to use a filter, it would be maybe one that I, you know, purchased from other artists or one that I create myself. I have an entire library of filters, so I can already begin to explore something that could be befitting for this image. Some of these filters, however, I made them specifically for phone photography because I'm a Google Pixel ambassador and I love taking photos and putting this to the test. It is really fun actually to shoot with this one, particularly video. I've been really enjoying shooting with this one. So I do create filters for my phone, and that tends to be a little bit more drastic. So if any of these filters tends to look like, oh, like that one right there, that doesn't quite work, it's a little too extreme, you can see in the grass here is too much, that's because it's for my phone. So I do have a series of here for my phone and some for my DSLRs. So you're gonna see keep that in mind whenever you download or purchase a filter. There's always modifications that you might need to make, contingent on what are you placing that filter on. I hope that answers your question, Peter. I'm not sure. Otherwise, if it's for my lens, I did have to use an ND filter, and they recommended maybe like a 15, something like that, but I had like a 12. And I was like, I hope I don't ruin my sensor, because essentially it acts like the solar eclipse acted as things I learned. Here are the things I learned. The solar eclipse, in many ways, and in the lens, in many ways, acts like a powerful heat. So if that heat gets to your sensor via your lens, which essentially is like a magnifier, right? Have you ever played that with a magnifier and just burn something on the floor? Yeah. So that's what I was risking. And I was like, it's my A7R III. Transitioning that camera kit from a video camera to a photo camera. And that is a new journey for me. The reason why I'm doing that is because I got a video camera. Specifically, I got the FX30. Gosh, this camera doesn't even have a viewfinder, and that tells you everything. This is not a viewfinder. This is a mic. That tells you everything. So my A7 III does have a viewfinder, so I am repurposing it as my main for my photo explorations. And so far, so good. I'm still gauging how well it works for different scenarios. I do feel like the body's a little bit harder to hold than my Canon bodies. And so that makes me a little bit iffy, because these things tend to be, this happened again. These things tend to be, let me go back to, these things tend to be like, I don't know, kind of on case by case basis. Babe. You. Awesome. Shout out. Okay. Now you want shout outs. Okay, so we're back in business. Let's start editing, folks. I think this is gonna be fun. I definitely want to collect a few of these. There's a few portraits that I really like. It was very challenging, quite frankly, because let me move this over. Because some of these shots, I mean, they were happening so fast. It's like, do I shoot the eclipse? Do I shoot, photograph people? I wasn't quite sure. It was like, it was pulling me because it's all like a small time zone of like when they're actually using the glasses. And that was challenging for me, because I wanted to shoot the eclipse at the same time, not miss it, but I didn't want to miss these reactions of people. And I think I captured a few. I definitely wish I had spent more time photographing more people, because that's my strength. That's the thing that I love the most. But I had to get me an eclipse shot, right? At least one. Whoops. All right, so let's start with this one. I love this shot here. I love that he's kind of smiling because he spotted me looking. But we've got some weird stuff going on here that are not working for me. We've got this guy in the background. We've got his arm cut off. I mean, it was like a very small moment. I mean, we've got an elbow over here. When it comes to shooting a situation that isn't planned, you'll find a lot of moments like this where when you get back to the editing zone, you have to do a lot of editing. So I want to be able to improve this photo from I don't know, this photo is like a C plus because the subject is great, but we've got a lot of interruptions, a lot of, oh, I wish I could have, but we can in post-production. So let's check it out here. All right, so what I want to do first and foremost is I'm actually going to jump into Photoshop. So now we are working with two softwares. We're working with Lightroom and Photoshop. The interesting thing is that Lightroom and Photoshop have a common workflow. So we're able to enter a photo directly into Photoshop from Lightroom. So edit in Photoshop or Shift Command E is the shortcut. And that's going to open up Photoshop for us. And in this case, it's opening up Photoshop Beta because that's how I set it up. And the goal here is going to be able to use some of the generative AI tools to improve some of these circumstances that are messing up our photos, right? So let's go in here. It opened in my second monitor, but we'll open it over here. I forgot to share live. So let's do that together to share my social media post. So let's hit share, shall we? I created a video earlier so folks can join me from Instagram. All right, share, let's go. Awesome. Cool. Adobe Live popped up right at the top. How funny. Okay, so as we work here on our photo, we can see that there's some things here that aren't working, right? So we have these moments that require removal. Now, removing items could be a matter of using any tool in Lightroom. However, we've got generative AI now, which really just changes the game for retouching and post-editing for photography. So I'm going to remove some of these items first. So we can do a couple things with generative fill. We can remove, we can add, and we can expand. So far, that's what we can do. And we definitely need to expand and remove. So I'm gonna start with remove in the order of operations. Let's start with taking away anything that is not working for us. So I can see here, this elbow is a no-go. Thankfully, the background is a really nice, sort of soft background. So I think that's gonna blend fairly well. We'll do a rough selection here, nothing crazy. Select generative fill from our contextual bar, which is currently open because I created a selection. But you can always go in here and hit contextual bar if this isn't on from the Windows panel. And the contextual bar is modular, which means it's often changing based on wherever you are in your workflow. I'm gonna hit generate. I'm not gonna add any text. Very important here to note is that by default, generative fill will remove, right? Remove items. If it doesn't remove, if it instead replaces it, I like to think of substituting. It substitutes pixels because in reality, if it truly removed everything, it would be a blank slate, right? So it substituted that pixel for me. It extended that tree, it looks like here. And by default, we already get 3 options. And that's always really helpful for me because I don't want to have to generate several times if I can help it. Hey, we got some new folks on the chat. Hey, Clever. Hey, Joshua. Oh, Joshua's here. Hey, Clever. What's up? I love that everybody knows each other. Okay. Looking good. All right. So to me, having these 3 always helps me. This isn't a hard substitution, right? But maybe this one's gonna be hard. Look at this fella. He was serious. He was on a mission. Not the same mission as the rest of us, because I don't know why he wasn't looking at the eclipse. You were missing out, my friend. So I'll do a rough selection here. You notice in the past, I would have to make such a specific selection. I would have to use a pen tool, and it was really, meticulous and time consuming. This time I can be crass and just make any selection, however it is. And I can almost trust that, because generative AI is still very unpredictable at the moment, but I can almost trust that it will do a pretty good generation, even if I don't create a very refined selection. So let's hit generate here. Now, because there is a subject here, this is a more complicated selection. So what's possible is that it might think, oh, you want another face? That could happen. Or this could happen, which is like, it understands that in the bigger picture, that's probably an obstacle that is not helping my photo. You can see here, there's like those little bits of hairs. They're still there. It still was generated. These aren't so good. So out of all of the three options, I do think number 1 and number 3 are the best. Another thing I look out for is that I don't want to change the shape of my main person, the subject matter's body, if I can help it. Because body is such a sensitive element that, we live with our bodies. Like, we will recognize if something's slightly different. And if I can prevent that, I will try to. So in this case, you can see the shape of his arms are relatively the same. Okay, so we removed those two, but we got one more right here because we can still see some clues that there was a fellow back there. Clever Devlin says, how to lose a guy in a few moments with Gen AI. That's exactly what just happened in a matter of seconds. I love that movie, by the way. It's one of the classics. Matthew McConaughey. Yeah, you know what? I moved here and I haven't met Matthew McConaughey yet. I feel like there's a list of things that you ought to do when you live in Austin if you want to be close to Austinites, true Austinites. I feel like a close encounter or a random encounter with Matthew McConaughey is one of those things you got to check off. Not yet. I keep going to soccer games, hoping to find him there. Haven't found him yet, but I'll let you know. The day that I do. All right, so hit generate fill on this one too. Hit generate. And you can see here, I'm doing this workflow in Adobe Photoshop Beta. Why am I doing it in beta? Well, part of the reason is it's always important to have the beta version just so that you can be in the loop of anything that is being updated. We're gonna hit generate here because that generation wasn't the best. Because in this situation with beta, you're going to get an introduction to anything that they're trying out, that they're testing in the background. And so that's going to be helpful for us to test out. Let's say there's a new model of Firefly. Firefly is what powers all of these generative fills. Then we might have a first try when we use Adobe Photoshop Beta. Of course, it also means it comes with like weird kinks, like it doesn't work every so often, and that's okay. You give feedback and they hear you out. And before it comes out in the Photoshop, capital THE, then you have gotten a chance to participate in what you liked about the tool, what you didn't like about the tool, and so on and so forth. Okay, I'm struggling with this one here because it's definitely giving me generations that don't exactly work. So instead, let's see if we have something like here. Instead, this one is a pretty clear selection here. Here's what I would do. Don't know if this is the workflow, but just just follow me here because I do tend to do this every so often. So let's see, we say select color range. We've got an exact orange, an exact gray here. So let's go here. So let's go back here. So select color range. So this is for you to make selections based on colors that you sample. I noticed that one of the generations was, specifically a gray tone. So I can use that to my advantage to select it. Okay. So you can see it selected other tones. So let's refine that selection a little bit more. So again, select color range. Let's go here and maybe deselect a few of these areas here. And fuzziness, let's remove the fuzziness a little bit. Run there. Maybe the gray area is not working. All right, so this ain't it. Let's just hit Command Select there on this, and then we'll create a mask. So double click. By the way, what we're doing here is all being applied to a TIFF file. This TIFF file is a heavy file that still contains all the metadata and information from your raw image. Okay. What all of that means is that we're working non-destructively. All of this is going to be able to be saved in layers if you wish to, or you can flatten it later if you wish to. But it's super cool because in this way, you're not working on a JPEG, which is probably the lowest version that you can work on while you're editing. So keep that in mind. I'm gonna borrow from some of these areas here. I'm a little disappointed GenFill didn't help me out here. Like I said, it's still very unpredictable. So I'm gonna add a mask on this one. I think it's yes, that's right. So white reveals, black hides. So far, let's remove this GenFill. And now we've truly removed an area. It's not substitution. Now we have a blank area. So what I can do is I can grab this little chunk right here, copy paste, not the mask, but the picture. And let's see if this works out for us. Put it around here, maybe expand it. Luckily, this is like not discernible because it's bokeh'd. So I can put it in the background. See what I did there? Like it's done. We did it. So what I could do here is I can flatten all my layers. Let's see here. Or I can keep it as is and save it into my TIFF file. However, if I do that, just keep in mind that what may happen is that file's fairly heavy. So, if I feel happy, I can just like merge everything. But before we do that, we're gonna do one last generative fill step. And in the order of operations, we haven't added much, but now we get to expand. So removing, adding, expanding. That's usually how I do it. Removing, adding, expanding. RAE, Ray. If you could name generative fill a name, Ray would be it. Okay, so I'm going to expand this over to the left so we can get some of his elbow here. And this can get a little funky because it's building a lot of this person's arm. And I kind of wish I had been able to collect it to begin with, but I didn't get a chance. So like I said, I'm working with this like zoom lens. I had to get further away. That's what happened. So let's see here. Let me think of this. Okay. So what I'm going to do is hit Shift Command E, Shift Command Option E. That's what you want to do. And that's going to create a brand new layer. From that layer, we're going to be expanding so that information is actually, here's what was crossing my brain at the moment. I cannot expand if I have other information in here. The reason why is that that can give me weird results, because in reality, what happens with generative fill is that it learns the contextual clues. So if your image has these other layers, whether I have typography on here, whether I have, I don't know, flowers, it could be anything on top of the layer, it's gonna take that into account. So if you don't want it to take into account into that context, do not have them on while you expand. See this area? Totally empty. Now, very important, from the drop-down menu, the default is transparent. This is how we're used to cropping. We're used to cropping with transparent. It's just going to expand and nothing's gonna happen. But now we have, in addition to content aware fill, we have generative expand. Let's try content aware fill. Let's do it just for funsies, right? Like generative expand content aware fill. So let's press enter by doing that expanding method, but with content aware fill. What happened? That is so weird. It is far too complex for content aware fill to take on. It's just too difficult. And on top of that, all it does is provide me with one option. So weird, right? Like, it's just not going to work for us here. But that's the options we used to have. Now, content aware fill is still good for areas that aren't too complex. So feel welcome to continue to use that. However, I will be using generative expand in this situation because I have Adobe Firefly behind it, and that's going to give me hopefully a better result. And more than that, it should give me more options. So let's say hello to some of the folks in the chat here. Let's see what's going on. All right, so Clever Devlin was near San Antonio. Rarely see I'm near San Antonio. Okay, got lucky to see the eclipse. Left south of Texas. Wow, that's so cool. You got to see it from the clouds. I love that. I mean, that's the hardest part. Like the clouds really made it much more difficult on that day. Joshua says, I saw it. I saw a live stream of the eclipse. I'm so happy that you saw at least a live stream, that you used live streaming for that, because that's awesome. Like, I think live streaming is going to be kind of an incredible new way for us to share our work more, I don't know, more candidly, because I think we want that more, right? But I do hope that you get to see it one day in person. I believe it's happening again in Spain a year from now. So if y'all want to do a trip to Spain to see the eclipse, let me know, because I would love to do that. Yeah, it was magnificent. It was amazing. So, okay, here, look at my elbows. Oh, his elbows, I mean. Oh. Okay, this elbow was weird. For sure, you can tell it's generative fill. This one seems a bit more natural. When it comes to generating body parts, I really try to find the one that looks the least like discernible that it's been generated. And I try to generate at least twice, at the very least 3 times, because weird things happen. And I do notice that it does improve the more that you generate. So this is helpful because it starts to gauge, okay, some things aren't working. So maybe you need this, maybe you needed this. So that's why I generate that many times. I mean, you're welcome to generate twice if you want to kind of keep your credits. So also hit generate similar could be helpful so that you can have options that aren't weird. One day we're going to laugh at the fact that this ever happened, because it's going to be so good that this will not happen anymore. So we've got option 1, we got option 2, and we've got option 3. You can see even the background changed a little bit. I'm going to go with option 2. Gosh, now they all look weird to me. I think that one looked the best. Okay, I'm going to go with that one for now and see if If it gets any weirder, then we'll come back here. All right, now we can flatten all of these layers if we want to, or, keep them as is. I think I might keep it as is. Press save, and it tells you we got TIFF options here. So if you save it, be aware it's going to increase your file size. So I can press OK, and that's gonna make my file non-destructive. It still has that information in it. And once I close it, you can see it's saving at about 86, 89, about 100% now. Once I close it, and okay, let it save, then it will show up on Lightroom because it's still a linked image. Yeah, I agree. I'm happy that there aren't weird fingers as well, Clever. I think that's the hardest part to generate is hands, but it has gotten better because I've been using Adobe Firefly for a year now. So, or any Adobe Firefly tools for a year now. And really, the generations have improved because they used to be funky. So you can see here, now we've got an upgraded photo. Now we've gone from that C+ to maybe a B+, right? So we're working on this scene, we're working on our image. We could even expand it vertically if we wanted to, right? Like there's so many opportunities. Now, this is really up to you. I do want to have the conversation fairly quickly that it is up to you what you generate. I have been creating rules for myself to continue to edit in a way that is ethical and not trying to create something that isn't real for ill purposes, right? That's the main point, right? So we're working on improving the image, and I think that's fair game. I think these blurred areas are just fine to generate. It's just not that big of a deal. Now, if I was transforming my cool cowboy here into another person, now we're walking a fine line. So keep in mind that internal ethical clock, I guess. I don't know what I'm saying, but like in terms of like keep in mind your own rules for post editing as a photographer, because this landscape of generative fill is brand new and we as photographers are defining it. So don't let anybody else define it. You define it and you go by that, and you decide, there's some areas where I draw a line, and there's some areas where I think it's totally okay and I can improve my image and have the coolest tools to do that. So now that we have this image here with us, and we've talked about our ethical responsibility as photographers, let's explore some of our options to style, to edit, to correct. I'm going to start with correction, right? So let's correct this image a little bit. We have our filters here, but I'm going to start we're in Adobe Lightroom, by the way. Adobe Lightroom Classic looks totally different. So we're working with Adobe Lightroom here. I'm going to take a look at this image. First of all, hit the F button, full frame, and ask myself, okay, let's see here. What can improve in this image? So when I look at this, I can see that there's pure blacks everywhere. There's really full blacks. There's no, I wonder if there's more information here. Like there's hair that is just pure black. What I mean by pure black is there's no mid-tone information. There's no texture. There's no details. But we're working with a raw file. So potentially there is still remaining details in this image. Can we find them? Can we see more texture in this fellow's shirt and the wrinkles and the hair and the background? So when I see pure whites or pure blacks, I often wonder if there's more information in there. So in order to find it, I'm going to go into the curve panel, and we're going to go into the parametric tool. And in here, I just, if you've been on these live streams, you know that I'm a big fan of curves. It's just such a cool way. I almost skip this light section altogether because it really helps me focus in on a very precise precise change on highlights, midtones, shadows, whites or blacks, right? And that is always good for me. I don't want an entire edit across the board. I want to be very specific. So here, if I pull this lever at the top, we're working with our highlights. If I pull the line from the bottom, we're working with our shadows. But you can see still pulls other areas. So in order to keep it, you want to move some of these little dots right here to define the shadows a little bit more. And then we can control from there. Now we can also use the first highlight, midtones, and shadows and create dots, which helps keep the other areas in its place without moving it. Now, when I go up, I notice, yeah, I get some details, but I also don't have a lot. So yeah, I got some information back. We got some texture here in the hair now, right? It's not pure black, which is cool. So now I've got some more detail to work with, and doing a little bit of contrast is always a good rule of thumb. Now I can go into the curves and create color contrast, one of my favorite things to do. Don't know if you've ever heard of color contrast, but I explored it in visual language, my class on Skillshare. You can create contrast with highlights and shadows, but you can also create contrast with color. And this is one of the ways I create contrast with color in post editing, layering on all of the different RGB channels and making them as closely the same shape as possible. That will be able to make a difference. Okay, so now we got that change right here, and I like that change. So I'm gonna save it into my versions. So under versions, we have auto and we have named. I'm gonna create a version under named and call it Cowboy 1. Cowboy 1, we've just done a little bit of correction, nothing too deep, just a little bit of color contrast, a little bit of light contrast, boom, we're done there. Now, down here, going from curves, color and effects are areas that I often treat as stylistic points of my editing. So this isn't an area so much for correcting, although you can also use it for that, but it's also for styling. And what I mean by that, Joshua says, I love the curves too, right? They're some of the best. And if I see them in Premiere, if I see them here, if I see them in Photoshop, I'm using the curves. I'm using them because they tend to never fail me across the board. They tend to be very useful for every medium I have, right? If I'm editing video, if I'm editing photos, if I'm trying to improve the color contrast of a photo in Photoshop or whatever, then we can use curves. Curves are the best. So under here, under color mixer, I've got the target adjustment tool. Gives me hue, saturation, and luminance. And I see that in his skin it's a little bit orangey, so I'm gonna bring that luminance down to improve the tonality of his skin, right? Because I can see I'm toggling between luminance, saturation, and now let's go over to hue. And you can see that it has two ranges. It goes to purple or green. So if it goes into green, it starts to look a little sickly, in my opinion. But if it goes too far into red, then it looks like, okay, are we on a beach day? What's happening? So you want to find like a nice balance. And that's just using the target adjustment tool. So I'm targeting that color. If we want to target other areas, we don't have to change anything. We don't have to make a selection. When we're here, we have to make a selection directly. We have to just choose, I want to edit reds. I want to edit greens. I want to edit blues. However, when you're directly on the image with your target adjustment tool, you get to just jump into the color, target it, and change that hue to something stronger. I mean, in this case, I have hue, yes, something a little bit bluer. Let's improve that saturations a little bit more powerful. And I can jump directly into the sky and start to mess with that too. The sky, unfortunately, doesn't have a whole lot. But I can jump into red, I can jump into green, I can jump into blue quite directly. And you don't have to change anything. It's just targeting that area. So let's go into the color grading tool. One of my favorite parts. Did I put it away? Yes, I did. Let's see, color grading. Here you are. All right, so in the color grading tool, it's a very stylistic choice. I love painting my shadows, especially in a moment when you have shadows that are completely black or highlights that are completely white, because unfortunately that tends to happen in street photography. Settings are hard to change on the go, and moments just happen. They just happen like that, and you got to catch them immediately. So pose editing tends to be pretty crucial in situations like this. If my shadows are pure black, then I love adding some color. So let's add some color here in our shadows. If you toggle from this little button to one of these guys, you get to see each one individually a little bit more zoomed in. So we've got our color wheel here. At the moment, we're in pure white. Oh, I see Jeff on YouTube. Hey, Jeff, what's up? Oh, that's awesome, Jeff. Yeah, it did a good job with the elbow. It was a decent elbow. AI is still a little bit iffy, but it improves every single day. And I hear that there's some cool improvements coming on the way. So if you want to keep up with that, keep up with my Instagram, which is where I share some of the insiders that Adobe shares with me. So I did think it did a good job here. I love my post-editing process now because it's so much faster. It used to be a headache. So now I'm going to go into the shadows and paint them. Now this, I call it stylistic because it's not a rule. It's really just fun, right? Like, you can use this for color correcting as well. Like, for example, if you have too much red, you might want to do the opposing color, like adding a little bit of blue. So this is when you have your white balance a little bit messed up, then you can modify it by adding a little bit of color from the opposite side of the color wheel. Okay, that's for correcting. However, for styling, I like to add a little bit of color into my shadows. Pink, if I want something more romantic, I think it tends to kind of have that color palette, especially in movies. Green, if I want a little bit more mystery or a little bit more grime, I would say. I don't know. It all depends on the concept that you're exploring. Blue, you can see, makes it look a little bit more rainy in our situation because of the sky. So I want to make it a little bit warmer. Let's do that. It's a cowboy, you know, so maybe somewhere between pink and orange. And of course, we have some other options here so that we can determine how much luminance is introduced into those areas that are being painted with this red, right, into our shadows. And the blending tool, do not skip this because it does make a difference. And we have a little bit of balance here. So when I go back, that balance leans more into the color that I selected. If I go into the other side, then it leans more into the opposite color. So that's how that works, right? Do you see that? So I'm going to go into the opposite color, about 50 right here. And I feel like that improves it. Yes, I know. The red look weird, but I definitely feel like a little bit, if you push this too far out into the wheel. Now we're working with something that appears to come out of a film camera. You know, those film cameras tend to have a lot of incorrect outputs that we now love, right? We now believe it's like nostalgic. We now, kind of love to introduce it into movies. You know, like this is that look, but you want to be a little bit more subtle here. So I'm going to end up around there. So that's my cowboy. Our cowboy started really funky. I feel like I could do a little bit more here. I want to come back to my curves and increase this mid-tone a little bit. Maybe, hopefully that's translating. I feel like flatten that a little bit more. Increase that lighting. It's so interesting how this lens flattens my background completely. So I like that. I still think this deserves an official crop. So let's go in here and select one of our grids. I like this one. All right, so let's crop in and try to keep him somewhere in the center. So what's nice about this is that now I have options. My frame is a little bit more balanced. I can do a symmetrical crop at 16:9, make it look cinematic in that way. And we have a cool cinematic photo, right? That looks so cool. And what's awesome about this scene is that we started here. This is where we started. We had weird things going on here. We had weird things going on here. And we improved our scene just like that. So we don't have to be distracted, or we don't have to have our viewers get distracted. But you still have the original here should you want to come back to it. All right, so as we continue here, let's go over to another scene. We have a couple scenes here. I definitely love the color edit. Oop, I went too far. So what happens here is if I scroll on the image, it's going to scroll through my thumbnails. See that? So this was totality right here. That was really hard to mess with because all my settings changed. It went from bright white to totality. Oh my gosh. It was, I mean, I'm getting like tingles just thinking about it because it was just so beautiful. And I think my favorite part above all has to be when the lights turned on in the street. There were these lights that turned on, and I don't think I had ever noticed that, like, that street lights turned on. You know, the evening just happens. But they turned on right before us because they're light sensors, and they detected that it got dark. It was so cool. It takes my breath away just thinking about it now. It was quite magical. I would do it again. So keep that Spain trip in mind, folks. All right, so let's edit another one here. Let's see. I want to edit a group photo because, I mean, this one's going to be hard to edit, to be honest. We've got, this person was looking straight at me. They're like, oh, picture. Okay, so a scenario like this is really hard because, I mean, originally this is what the image looked like. And it's rough. It's rough, you know? You can't really see much. So immediately I knew I needed to increase that visibility. And look at how much information is actually underneath. I mean, that's nuts. Let's pull those midtones. Let's pull those shadows. Let's pull those highlights. Now we do have grain in the situation, but I think I'm gonna embrace that grain. And this person was pointing up. All right, so I'm gonna copy that edit, right? We can directly copy it. Command C, or copy, edit in settings, right clicking, and paste that in on the other scenes. There you go. And see which one is the best. We've got this one. I feel like I thought she was pointing in that one. I think this is the one that they're pointing. Yeah, this is the one that they're pointing at. And when we go to the original, so dark, but then we go back to this one. Awesome. Absolutely cool. I love it. And I feel like this is a great ingredient for me to do a composite of the eclipse, because this person is pointing upwards. And so that could be really neat to do. We can do it now, actually. Let's try to play with that if we want to do a composite of this scene. So we've increased that really rough grain here. Like I said, we're going to try to embrace it. Let's go into the details and reduce that detail a little bit, just so that grain is not so emphasized. We do have a denoiser here, but it does take time. So you can see here how it works. I'm going to press it. Let's see how it works out. But we do have a denoiser within Lightroom. Click and hold preview window to view without enhance a plate. Okay, so if you click on it, look at all that noise. Ouch, right? And of course, at the moment is at 50%. We can increase it to a little bit more, but that's pretty good. So this enhances the detail and the quality of our image. And again, it's using AI for it. So that's pretty cool, because all of these nightmare situations that we've got, because it's just, that's just the game, right? It's not as predictable to be able to photograph an eclipse that turns from day to night. You know, in retrospect, have 2 cameras. That's what I would recommend. Have 2 cameras, quite ready for either situation. Or maybe create a preset. I don't know. I might have 2 cameras next time. But look at that. Oh, wow. That really did improve it. Okay, I'm going to be using this more, I think. I was embracing the noise. Y'all heard me like 2 seconds ago. It's like, I'm going to embrace the noise. You know, it's okay. But yeah, I'm happy that I can do stuff like this. All right, let's color this one. Okay, we've got the target adjustment tool we said we learned about today. So let's use that target adjustment tool on maybe saturation. Looks like I can't use the target adjustment tool anymore. I wonder if that's because of the post editing. Now we're not working with a raw. Don't know. I will get back to you on that, but that's a mysterious little thing right there. All right, let's go into our shadows to paint things instead. So we can add a little bit of color in here. Into our shadows, we can add a little bit of color into our midtones. Maybe a little blue. I try to do the opposite. That's my rule. Like just if I do blue on one, I'll do red on the other. And so the colors start to balance each other. The highlight can have a little bit of pink in there. Okay, looking good. Which one can we strengthen? Probably the sky. Ooh, can we bring some color into that sky? There you go. Something in the way you move. Let's see, maybe here. And always try the blending tool, because things blend differently. The balance tool as well. It gives you completely different results. And we can go completely dreamlike here if we wanted to. Ooh, there you go. The irony is that when I saw the darkness, it did look like this, but my eye could see them. My eyes can see them. Do you know what I mean? Like, we photograph things and the camera often needs help because it doesn't capture what our eye sees. Not quite literally, because our eye is so powerful. I mean, all we're trying to do in photography is mimic the eye. So I feel like that just improved, right? So we took this one from, I'm going to say an F because it was just black like this, to a nice like B. I still got a lot to do here. I would say definitely I would jump into Photoshop and edit out some of these areas that are obstructive. This I don't mind. I like the fact that there's people there. I would remove some things that are small. Like for example, I can use here the remove tool, also powered by AI. So I don't need to use generative fill necessarily. We've got the remove tool. So we can use the remove tool here. I'm going to unclick remove after each stroke so I can select a few spots before I tell it to go and do its thing. So in this scenario, there's some weird little dots, maybe here and here, and press check. And boom, it removed that so swiftly. Let me do one more here and press check. And I like that. I think that looks great. Now, if we wanted to expand this, we could. Now, let me see. We're entering now past journalism. Now we're entering the area where we're recreating a scene. We are playing with compositing. Photography has a lot of different realms. In this case, I'm gonna hit generative expand to expand. Photography has a lot of different realms, folks, and I think it's important to explore any of them, just find the one that you enjoy. So for example, if I really like compositing, I might find an entire industry where I can venture into a career for compositing. But I wouldn't know that if I limit myself in the editing process, right? And wow, that is so crazy. So in this case, I expanded this with generative fill and gave no instructions. So maybe we need some instructions in this case. So let's go here and create a quick expand. Just say more sky. Hopefully that doesn't include any weird things. But yeah, like you have to be able to give yourself a chance to try out new mediums, to try out new ways of exploring your photography. I think as artists, we give ourselves too many rules and they could be very stifling in our progress of photography. And so I've learned those lessons. I would love to encourage you to break away from those rules too, because that's when I saw the most growth in my career, when I started expanding into different mediums. I started my career as a graphic designer. Never did I think I was going to be a photographer. Never did I think that I was going to be now a video editor. Never. I knew I was curious, but I did not know that if that was a path for me, if I didn't use traditional education to get there. But instead, I said, well, why not? Why not me? So I ventured into the World Wide Web, my friends, the incredible library of the World Wide Web, where we get access to free education. I mean, I'm just saying, if you're not taking advantage of that now, I know you are because you're here, but it's just like such an important moment in your path as a creative when you allow yourself to expand your skill sets. I know you hear it today a lot, but quite frankly, I feel like we don't consciously think about it. Okay, so I'm gonna close this so it can show up here. And I think it will. Actually, yes, that's good. All right, so now we have another version. There you go. I think what I wanted to do was add the moon there. I'm just thinking here that that could be cool. So let's see if it's possible. So let's edit a quick moon here. I do have the eclipse. We had a few people here saying, ooh la la. Ooh, you can just almost hear it. Ooh. Mo in the middle. Let's see. Where's my moon? Where's my moon? Here you are. Hey, my little moon. Oh, my sun and my moon together. So I did this edit, and I'm going to show you how I did that real quick. You're going to be very familiar with this because we learned a couple of these things today. So I like this moon because it's not completely totality yet. It's kind of sneaking in. The moon is sneaking in the front, but there's also some clouds, and I think that's super cool. Of course, this is a 200 millimeter, right? If I had a 400 millimeter, it would have looked like this. If I had 600, it would have looked like this, and so on and so forth. So let's just crop it. We will lose some pixels and we will lose some resolution, but we've got ourselves a denoiser, which enhances our details. So we can choose to denoise it here or not, right? Let's say we don't denoise it. We can also choose to enhance the details, just enhance the details, because now I've cropped. So I might want to improve it. I can also do super resolution, but that takes a long time. Does it take a long time? It takes 8 seconds. Such a long time. Oh my gosh. So we can hit enhance there, and it's going to improve the overall quality of your image. In this case, I need that because I had to crop in because my zoom lens is just not, enough to reach the sun and the moon. It's wild. It's wild. It was fun. It was fun. So we're going to color grade this moon to make it a little bit more funky. And so we're going to go into our very beloved color grading tool and add a little bit of color on the midtones, a little bit of color on the shadows. Hey, Keys. Key says, I should be asleep, but Sin is on Adobe Live. I'm sorry. Am I keeping you awake? What time is it where you are? And did you see the eclipse? Did you see it? So I'm adding a little bit of blue there, a little bit of tint. It's just, I'm making my scene a little bit more interesting by adding color palettes. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm not going to paint the black. Actually, let's not paint black yet because I do want to use that black in order to use my blend modes in Photoshop. So just midtones and maybe highlights here. So a little bit of green. We could add yellow, red, blue. Maybe a little bit of the opposite color since we added red on the other one. Okay, now we have a colorful moon. And that's good. I like this so far. And so I'm going to edit and open in Photoshop. So. Okay, so it should open up here in Photoshop. Now we do have a TIFF file open. What I want to do is double click this, press OK, and right click, duplicate layer. So we're going to right click and duplicate layer here. Let's see what's happening too. All right, so you should be able to see that. Okay, I right clicked, duplicate layer. I'm gonna duplicate it onto the next TIFF file. And that's going to drop it into this scene. Boom! Do you see where I'm going here? Do you see where I'm going here? Yes, you do. Okay, so normal, these up here, they deal with blending in that white area, and this blends in the black area. Now, unfortunately, I wasn't able to capture this scene exactly this way, but thanks to post editing, I can bring in ingredients from that event, from that day, genuine ingredients, and put them together. Compositing makes it possible. So I think color dodge looks amazing. I think screen looks pristine. It looks like it's totally there. But linear dodge, all right, linear dodge, hitting kind of like the in between. So I'm liking this. Use the lighting. What does Jeff say? Jeff, what you mean by use the lighting? LOL. Clouds are coming with that prompt. Yeah, I know. Yes, it is a B for now, but I'm hoping it gets to like an A plus by adding the moon. And what's so cool is that at this point, like I can do so many things. I love animating my scenes. Just my brain goes there. My brain just wants to do even more. So like, for example, I can grab another scene. Let's say I grab one that is not yet, sneaking in, a little sneaky. I need a little bit more like this, like a little teeny tiny sliver. That's like almost full totality. I couldn't capture full totality because I was capturing people. And quite frankly, I had a lot of clouds. So our totality lasted 3 seconds. I mean, we felt the darkness much longer, but the visibility of the sun and the moon were 3 seconds because clouds were covering it. So I mean, I'm going to Spain is what it sounds like, So I'll edit this in Adobe Photoshop as well. So we'll bring this variation of the moon into Adobe Photoshop. Let's bring one that is an instance that is even, let's bring another one. So I'll use 3 instances. This instance has a little bite. I love that little bite. Oh, I just love it. I don't know. Why do we love our own photos so much? Why do we love our own photos so much? I feel like I can't pick a favorite because I don't care if I do it badly. This is my Eclipse photo. I am happy that it's mine. Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean? Yes, yes. Oh, Jeff, you found our Behance chat. I'm so glad. Jeff says, I was wondering where everyone was. I was all alone on the YouTube chat. Yeah, my YouTube chat is fairly new. So if you want to support my YouTube, please subscribe. I'm doing that thing, y'all. I'm doing it this year. It's nuts. It's nuts. I never thought I would be a photographer, a video editor, and I never thought I was gonna strive to be a YouTuber, but here I am. Just things I venture in. If you know me, like Jeff knows me, hey Jeff, you've seen me. I jump into so many different adventures in my career. I absolutely stay loving it because I keep it novel. So if you want to support my YouTube, that's where you're gonna see all of these live streams, especially from Medium Unlimited. Also, any live streams that I run on Adobe Live, where I also run this series, Medium Unlimited. Keep up with me. Join me on YouTube there as well on the chat. I am streaming there. I am streaming on Behance here on Wednesdays and on Mondays. On Monday, we have a really cool stream on Adobe Live for Medium Unlimited. And so you can keep up with it if you subscribe and turn on the notification bell. That drill. So hopefully I'll see you there. Let's grab this tiny little bite and transfer it over to Photoshop. Now I'm trying to paste my edit. I don't know why I didn't paste. So let's see. This, my mid-tone had a little bit of orange. Oh, because it's mostly highlights. So it did paste. That's a good example there. It did paste, but it's mostly highlight, right? So edit this also in Photoshop. And here's what I mean by, hey, I feel like animating literally everything. So we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna duplicate it. We're gonna send it over to our first file, which is enhance and R. Let me make sure it's the right one. Edit. Okay. So that should be the one. Yep. There you are. So we can close this one. And then we have this one. Duplicate. Right click. Ooh, double click. Let's see here, press OK. And you can see what happens. So we've got now our extra files. We've got this one, and this one. Now let's blend it with the same blend mode, linear dodge. So let's go to linear dodge for that one, and then linear dodge for this one. Okay. So let's make sure that this is increased to about the same size. Oh, man. Okay, let's increase, I think this one and this one, right? All right. So let's go here and try to make it as close. I'm selecting both of them because they should be relatively the same size since I didn't crop them. And I'll move this one, my little bite, my little cookie bite is right there. And then we'll do this one. Yeah. Yeah, Key says, we wouldn't be photographing if we didn't like it, I suppose. I know of a poetic notion about photography. Bear with me. Oh, Spain Eclipse is on 2026. Oh, are you serious? That's a long time. Keith, you're in Iceland? That is amazing. We almost went, right? Oh, wow. That's so cool. I didn't know that Spain was in 2026. I thought it was like 2025. I'm okay with 2026, I suppose. It's better than waiting till 2044, right? That's when it's going to happen here again. All right, so let's say we did something like this. We can introduce this one, then this one, and then this one. So this is a TIFF. This could be hard to do if you're animating in a TIFF. I wouldn't recommend it, quite honestly. But if you wanted to bring in this into an animation here, I would create a video timeline and do a easy peasy, maybe 2 seconds here to showcase each scene, just for kicks and giggles, okay? Let's say, yeah, 2 seconds. And the first one would be this one, right? So let's call this 1. Let's call this 3. And this one should be 2. Hello. There you are, 2. And 1, 2, 3. Okay. So that's how we're going to do it. So 1 is just a little bite. This is starting to be a cinematograph, if you know what cinemagraphs are. So part of the image is still, and then part of the image is animated. Of course, it's more like a stop motion, right? Um, mm, mm. Is that in the right position? I think that jump, I don't like that jump. So I'm going to delete those 2 frames. You want to correct that positioning before you start doing the animation because it gets really weird after that. Otherwise, you can't really make changes like that. So this is my troublemaker. Gotta have it right on top. Maybe right there. Hopefully that jumps a little less. So maybe one we have blank, then the next one we have this. We have 1, and the next one we have 2 without the 1, and then next one we have 3 without the 2. So I should do something, right? So what's interesting here is that you can do no delay and then go from here, right? And in here, between each one, we could create an onion skin. Have you ever seen an onion skin? It has all these layers, right? I'm sure you cook. I believe that. Okay, so that's what we're gonna do here. If we blend these 2 together, we can create this little icon right here, is our little onion skin. And it's called twin, but it's like in between the 2 files, right? So how many frames do we want to add in between? I feel like a solid 4 is a good blend, right? Make sure you're at 0 seconds. Don't do it at 1.2 seconds or anything like that. It would look weird. So that creates a blend. So it's less of a jump, right? We want to do that also with these 2. So let's do that. And wait, let me see. Let me make sure I'm doing this. These animations are always funny to me because this is how I learned. Oh no, I'm learning so many things right now. So this is how I learned to feel less intimidated by animation. I don't know. I started in Photoshop. I thought, hey, why not? And I'm glad I did because now I know how to use Premiere out of pure curiosity, really. And so let's see what that looks like. I think I did it right. Oh, it's happening. Oh, that's awesome. Okay, let me show you here. Wow, look at the moon. Hey, little moon. Hey, little sun. Not so little. Key says, I thought it was next year too. I know. That's all right. All right, so obviously I have a lot more photos to edit. If y'all want me to run another stream for our Eclipse series, I will. I absolutely love editing with y'all. I think it's super awesome to have company, and I'm so happy that all of you jumped in on Behance, and definitely jump in on YouTube and support my YouTube journey because, gosh, I don't know the secrets. You know, I'm doing it old school, word of mouth, telling all my friends and family. You know what I mean? So yeah, thank you so much. This was so fun to edit. I got my totality shirt. I had to fight for it, but I got to see. Now I've seen 2 crazy things here in Texas. I've seen the snowpocalypse. That one time it snowed in Texas. Yeah, that happened. I moved here from Florida. I had shorts and sandals. I did not know what was happening. And this amazing time when totality was right in our path, and it was absolutely magical. So folks, thank you so much. Again, my name is Sen Lagos. I will be streaming again here on Wednesdays on Medium Unlimited, on YouTube, and on Behance, and potentially Facebook. I don't know. But anyways, keep up with me. Go on my website and keep up with our calendar on senlagos.com. I love sharing all my classes in there and sharing resources like filters and things like that in there as well. So I hope to stay in touch, and thank you for all your support, and see you on the other side. Bye.